thank you everyone, panelists for being here and for members for viewing, as well as future members for the recorded session. And so just begin by saying hello, everyone. My name is Isabela, and I'm a Yale alumni and ambassador, currently a student at UC Berkeley studying business administration and computer science, as well as a consultant at Diversitech, also at Berkeley. So thank you so much for joining us at Yale Community Day, and welcome to Who Run the World Girls session. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that if you click on the side menu during the session, you'll actually leave the session unless you've opened it in another tab. So if that happens, you can easily rejoin, no issue. And then at the very end, once I've asked all my questions, there'll be times for others to ask during the Q&A session at the end. So please hold all your questions until then. A little background on myself. I've been a part of Yale since 2018, during which my team and I won the Venture Challenge before becoming an ambassador and a mentor for the next two groups of Yale students. And throughout my time in this program, as well as my other experiences in business, and even as I pursue a degree right now in university, I've encountered so many incredible women, like the ones we have on the panel today, of course, as well as the various obstacles that tend to confront us. And so when I was asked to be a moderator for this session, I obviously jumped at the chance. And so I wanted to thank our speakers for being here and sharing with us. And I'd like to start by asking them, of course, to introduce themselves, including who they are and what they do. And I guess we could begin with Paulina.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Paulina Cameron. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a first generation settler dialing in today from the unceded and Stolish lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh in North Vancouver, in what is now known as Canada. In my day, I get to work with thousands of incredible women entrepreneurs. As the CEO of the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, we provide education, programming, resources, mentorship, and community to women entrepreneurs across Canada who are growing their business as we bring to life our mission of leaving no woman behind. I have really fun hobbies on the side, like writing books and starting businesses and advising and investing in women-led businesses. I have two really mostly sweet kids. And I love spending outside time in the forest, and I drink lots of coffee. That is me.
Awesome. Humaira, what about you next?
Yeah, well, how can you beat that? But I will follow that. And I'm Humaira Ahmed, founder and CEO of Locelle, which is a platform dedicated to advancing women in the workplaces, predominantly male-dominant workplaces. My background, I moved from Pakistan to Toronto, Canada in 2005, and with a background in software engineering. And I found that, interestingly, in Pakistan, we were 40% women in our program, whereas in Toronto at York University, I was one of the 160, or one of the few of 160 in third year, because all my credits were transferred. And that's where I really felt like something was not right here. Like, we're a progressive country, like, what's going on here? And so there began my passion. I moved into communication studies, worked in tech for over a decade, and then started my company after having my two daughters. They are 4 and 6 now, and huge inspiration for me, because I want to help women in male-dominant industries not only just, survive but thrive. And I think of my girls. I want the world to be a better place for them than it is for us today. And so, yeah, that's me.
So much. And then Jessica.
Hi, thanks, guys. Wow, Paulina and Humaira, you guys are doing some amazing things for women. And I am actually a woman in a male-dominated industry. So I am an HVAC apprentice. I am learning to become a refrigeration mechanic, just like my dad and my brother. My dad was a refrigeration mechanic for over 40 years. And even though I was around it my whole life, it was never really given to me as an option for a career, the trades. Whereas my brother went to BCIT right after high school and is now qualified for over 10 years. So I'm quite late to the game. I spent about 10 years in corporate offices. I went to university, got an office job just like I was supposed to. And here I am in a completely different career, loving it. It's challenging, rewarding. And I just want to share with everybody that these are options for you guys, you girls.
Amazing. Okay, I'm already so pumped. And so all of you kind of alluded to it, but if you could speak more about how you got specifically involved into what you're doing, like the first steps. For example, Humaira, you talked about how you noticed that you were one of like the few of 160 women in your program. So I was curious how you translated that into an actionable business.
Yeah, it took a while. So this was back in 2008 when I graduated. So yeah, so 12 years ago. But I found that, as I still wanted to work in the tech industry, and utilize whatever I kind of knew, and still, whether it's communications, marketing, or sales, I still wanted to be in the tech field. And I found that it was really, really challenging. The barriers are just insane, whether that's language to stereotyping to, like, I'm always the girl in marketing because of my hair and I like to do makeup, right? Like, even at tech conferences I go, and people refuse to sometimes believe that I'm the CEO of, this tech startup. And so just the stereotyping barriers that a lot of women face, myself firsthand, but also a lot of women in my community. And that's where, I've always wanted to do something about that. But when my kids were born, so I'm not gonna lie, it took my daughters to be born. So after my second one was born, I was increasingly feeling isolated, and, wanted to navigate the barriers I had. And just it was just hard. So I started with myself, built a community around myself, and then really dived into what are some of these barriers that women face, when these barriers are, really affecting our growth, and what can we do to not just navigate, but really explore opportunities. Because I truly believe tech belongs to everyone. It's not, and people sometimes say, oh, okay, so then why are women not in construction? We should do that. It's just so stupid. It's like, biologically, we're different. We're talking about mind here. We're all super capable. And so that's where I think, my passion just really kind of fueled what I began with Locelle 3 years ago. We're turning 3 next week, and I'm just so excited. It's like 30 years in the startup world. Lots of barriers even within the journey, right? Whether it's funding or finding the right strategic partners. And so it's been challenging, but I would say that the catalyst was, when I had my daughters, and I was like, okay, it's really challenging. I want to connect with other ambitious women. How do I do that in a way that works for me? And I also refused to believe there were no women around me, that I could connect with. So that's kind of how I started. And of course, 3 years later, we've evolved a lot. And it's the journey that I always say this to my husband, we've made a lot of sacrifices for me to have this tech startup, especially not having been venture backed, meaning external capital. It's been really challenging, but overall, the opportunities, the growth, it's like multiple MBAs on steroids. It's just, so I will take this any day, and just be rewarding. And I see that in my daughters today. They walk like they're leaders. If anything, they have the other challenge of like, I am the best. So, but that's okay. I'll take that.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. And then a similar question for Jessica. I mean, you mentioned that you initially went to an office job, like what you were supposed to do. So what was your catalyst to be like, you know what? No, like I'm going to do what I genuinely want to do, not what I've been told to.
I was really lucky. I had a great job, a career in a beautiful office in downtown Vancouver. I was wearing pretty dresses and shoes every day. And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with my family. So I work with my dad and my brother, and we have a very small little business out here in Port Coquitlam. And even when I started with Cam Cool, I was in the office just because that's where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And I spent about 9 months in the office, waiting for my dad and my brother to come back from their jobs and tell me their exciting stories on all these interesting places that they visited, these factories and just interesting places. And I'm like, why can't I go with you? Not only that, I was doing all the invoicing, the bookkeeping, and I had no idea the difference between a contactor and a compressor and a capillary tube and a condenser. They all sounded like the same thing to me. So my initial reason for going out into the field was to get a grasp on these terms so that I knew what I was invoicing out and quoting out. My first couple of times I went out, I was like, when can I go again? And I kept wanting to go out instead of being in the office. So I registered as an apprentice, started logging my hours, registered for my trade school, and here I am. And I wish I had done it sooner. I find being in the field is so interesting and challenging. There's always a problem to solve. It's wonderful. I get to work with my hands. I get to climb ladders and be on roofs. And when it's raining, it's not the best choice, but summertime, it's amazing. And I get to help people. Some companies really rely on refrigeration. For example, if you're a meat supplier and your refrigeration, your walk-in freezer goes down, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of product in there that can be spoiled. So we come and we solve this problem for people. We make them comfortable. We keep their things cold. And I love it. I love it.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh my God, the passion is palpable. It's amazing. And then Paulina, speaking of helping people, I mean, the forum for like women entrepreneurs, for example, like that's quintessential. So I was curious about how you got into like that specific area of not just being a powerful woman yourself, but making other women as equally, if not more powerful.
I mean, what's more fun than that, right? Like truly, I don't know what could be more fun than getting to do this. I have always had a passion for this space. My background is in finance and accounting. So I was a total nerd in high school. I loved math. I was really good at it. I wish I had felt more confident in owning that. I went to university and I went into finance and accounting because I was good at math. So I should do that. I actually kind of wish I had gone into like math proper. I think I would have really loved that. But I went into business because that's what my parents did. And that is what you do when you are good at math. And so once I graduated, I got an internship with one of the 4 large accounting firms, and within a year knew that my path there would not be very long. But I stayed for 3.5 years. I got my CPA designation, chartered accountant designation. I did move into a different area of the practice that focused more on management consulting and strategy and leadership and business, which interested me a lot more. I love the people side of business so much. And then I quit cold turkey one day and spent some time really understanding what my strengths were, where I really loved working, what kind of environments did I love working in, what kind of culture did I love working in. And one of the things that became really important to me is I really wanted to work in a space where I'd be building the kind of tomorrow that I wanted to live in. And so that very quickly took me into entrepreneurship and innovation and that world. And so now I kind of get to combine those 2 worlds together, which is just the best.
Much. And this kind of leads me on to the next question. I mean, you talked about your path. It wasn't exactly straightforward in terms of eventually going, being like the CEO of the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs. As someone, maybe a high school student or even like someone like just getting out of university, how would you recommend them getting on the similar path if they're so interested without kind of all like the little twists and turns that you experience?
Oh, I love that question. And I'm going to reframe it because I think the twists and turns are the best part of it. And they don't feel that way in the moment at all. They feel overwhelming, confusing. You just want to figure out what the right answer is. You want to know, like, I just want to know what step 1 through 5 is going to be. And like, someone tell me what the right decision to make is. And schools will do that to you. Parents will do that to you. Yeah. Society will do that to you. There is a lot of models and templates out there. And, I love the twists and turns. I think that's where the depth of life happens. I think that's where you grow as a person so much. And I think I'm probably going to have another like 4 or 5 careers, I hope, in my life that'll be totally different. And I'm really excited around that because I think following kind of opportunities and what feels really aligned with my values will be most important. And so I guess what I would say is, if you can find the space to quiet the voices that are around fear and worry and judgment and right answers, and instead get really plugged into what your values are, what you really love working on, which is very different. It can be very different than like just doing what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about making sourdough bread, and I would be an awful baker. I love doing it just for my family, but getting really clear on what your strengths are and what your contributions to the world can be, and then leveling up in that, getting reskilled, going back to school. Just, I love that you went like, hey, I need to up level and upskill in this area. Awesome. Like, it is never too late for that. And what a beautiful way to showcase that we have a growth mindset and really dive into it. So I think, but I think if I had been told early on that I could let go of the path and make my own path aligned with my values and strengths, I probably would have not have as much stress or anxiety or worry about it. I don't think you can eliminate all of it, but I think opportunities like this to hear from stories from people who have pivoted or changed or shifted or moved around are so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. And you mentioned, it's never too late. And I feel like, Jessica, you kind of resonated with that. And I was curious, like your career path is, especially in like the trades and something that's more like hands-on and problem solving. If others are interested, especially women, what do you think they would need to think about if they want to go into trades, and how would you even prepare yourself to get in?
Yeah, the first place you would check out is the ITA, which is the Industry Training Authority that oversees apprentices in British Columbia. And they oversee all kinds of apprentices, both mechanical. So if you're thinking of going into electrician or HVAC, something like that, plumbers, but also hairstylists and chefs and stuff like that. So check out the ITA. They've also got an ITA youth group as well. So check that out. One surprise that happened to me was, because I am late to the game, I've been out of high school for quite some time. And when I got to trade school, the biggest shock for me was the math and the physics. So I also, like Paulina, was always really into math. I did a lot of accounting and economics in university. So that's a part of the training that I enjoyed, was the math, but it was a bit of a surprise to me. What else would I say? Yeah, I would agree with what Paulina and also Steve Rio earlier said. I could, in moments of weakness, I could say that I've wasted those years in the office, but that's not necessarily true. I've built all these new other skills that I've brought to my family business. So I can wear all the hats. I do all the marketing. I do lots of social media. I do the bookkeeping, payroll, all of that stuff. So I'm very lucky. I feel like I have sort of a level up on my brother, who's only, I shouldn't say only, but he's a qualified technician, but that's his role. Whereas I do everything. Whatever hat I need to wear that day is what I do. But check out the ITA. That's the best place to start.
Okay, sounds good. That's quite the plan. Thank you. And Humaira, you were talking about how, starting a startup, especially one that's not venture backed, is challenging, but it also has a lot of opportunities for growth. So similar question, if someone was interested, what do you need to think about, and how do you prepare yourself?
Great question. And I will say that my assumptions have changed a lot since I began this, tech startup. And I would say that the first thing, people just get really scared, and I was too. Just okay, how am I going to get money? Who's going to validate my idea? And where do I go? There's like a lot to think about. And for me, because I had a marketing consulting company prior to Locelle, where it wasn't anything large. It was just like, I could just work enough to be happy and be satisfied and work with the clients that I wanted to. So that gave me a little bit of an advantage in that I had, the know-how of a business plan. So, I just started there. But what I also did was I went into 2 accelerators. I was like, okay, my goal was just to get into an accelerator. And I can tell you that what Locelle is today was absolutely nowhere to what I thought Locelle was going to be when I had the idea. I just wanted to tackle social isolation, and I was like, I want to connect with other like-minded women. How do I do that in a meaningful, effective way on demand? So that was the idea. And then I just knocked, the doors of the accelerator. So I enrolled myself into the Victoria, which is where I am right now, via tech. As well as New Ventures BC, which is Distance BC Accelerator. So I went there, and that's where, it was like, again, drinking from a fire hose. It was insane. And I would see people, and I was like, wow, like they are, either engineers, with a lot of experience. They are second, third time founders, and they already have, venture money, like the equity, or the, pre-seed capital before even having a product. And, so I learned a lot about having a powerful network and, and how to leverage that network. So again, I would say over the years, the one thing that has really worked well for me is just putting myself out there. It's okay to be stupid. I remember the first video I put out because I was, again, part of this accelerator. Somebody approached me and they said, okay, so what's your go-to-market strategy? Like, how are you going to get out to the world and tell about your app? And I said, okay, I don't know, maybe I'll work with influencers, because that was a big thing, 3 years ago. And she said, no, you are the influencer. You are going to be out there. And I was like, hell no, like, I'm not going to put myself out there. And it was interesting because I started to think about that, because she said, I want to join your app because I like you. And this is what I want to sign up for. And this is not what influencers have. And their motivations are different. Your motivation is entirely, you want to make this world a better place. Whereas anyway, so that really stayed with me. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? So I remember still, that video still up there somewhere, where I just put myself out there and I made this one video with camera angle like here, like literally. And I was like, your purpose, your why. And it was bad, really bad. And it was so bad that my father-in-law actually reached out to me and he said, you know what? Yeah, good start, and you need to get better equipment. And so he was trying to help me. But in that moment, and that video got a lot of traction. A lot of people could relate, because a lot of people were like, yeah, we feel uncomfortable. They probably were happy that my camera angle was awful. So just getting started, like whatever it is, put yourself out there, and people will actually resonate with that, and reach out to people. Be mindful. So again, growing your network is really, really important, but having a meaningful network is, makes all the difference. So if I were to reach out to Paulina, I can't just be like, hey, let's have coffee. Okay, great. But I am busy. What do you want? Right. So, and now too, like, I get so many requests, and for me, the ones that I have, will make time for are where they say, Humaira, I saw you speak. This is the area I'm passionate about. I have a few questions. As an example, can we please get 15 minutes? And when they do get 15 minutes, the ones that stay, or the ones that I follow up with too, are the ones that actually stay on time. So be mindful, be intentional, and get out there. Put yourself out there. If you don't know, it's fine. I still don't know a lot of things. So, and just have that growth mindset, like Paulina said, and just be curious, be passionate, and be mindful. So that's what I would.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about the value of a network, but the value of a valuable network. And that kind of leads me to the next question, which is very topical about, and if anything, COVID and the pandemic has showcased the importance of having a strong network, especially with like social isolation, which is something else you mentioned. So I was curious about how your business in particular has been affected by the pandemic, how you've had to adapt.
So actually it sounds bad, and I haven't really celebrated any of that. But when the pandemic hit, what we were doing, we were connecting. So we had built an enterprise offering on top of our app. So our app initially was location based, easily, download the app, connect with other women, like-minded women based on your interests and location. And then we ended up building an enterprise offering where companies and big enterprises could privately connect women, based on their common interests and goals, because locally you may be a few, but globally you're so many women strong. So providing that easier access to this meaningful network. And then the pandemic hit, and what I learned the hard way was we became a vitamin and not a painkiller. So the vitamin analogy is, in long term, this is great, right? Like over time, people build meaningful connections. It's going to help, create sense of belonging, especially in COVID times, and and then better productivity or whatever that may be. Whereas a painkiller would be like an instant fix. And we were not that. Like, we were not going to fix things, with our platform at the time. But what I did was we paused development, and it was really tough times. Like, it was just me, myself, and I, after having built a team of 3 people before. And we looked into the data, and we learned that, a lot of women on our platform, the 87% wanted to find a mentor. And 30% wanted to be mentors. So that was kind of blessing in disguise. Within 1 month, this is where the scrappy startup, experience had really, helped me, where I just hired one person, put together this like program, and start to reach out to companies that we had known or built relationships with. And I said, look, if we connect you with external mentors, for free for 1 month, just give us like a few women each. And anyway, so we started with 10 women mentors and mentees. And that started to grow into, wow, like now we're working with amazing, like at least 10 plus, tech companies, where we come in and we provide the pre-screening, mentor matching, scheduling, and feedback. Wow. So we do it all. We're the volunteer service that takes all the hassle out of like who's going to be the mentor, mentee, and it's unbiased, right? It's really it's democratized access to mentorship. It's not like, oh, I think Humaira is high talent or top talent, so she should get mentorship. No, you don't know. Maybe Sally's top talent, but she sits behind the computer screen and she doesn't have the confidence to speak up. So we democratize access to it. We do everything. So it's a fully managed program. And so, with hindsight, I think it took a pandemic for us to really accelerate where we needed to be. And, and now our team is 8 people. We're growing every month. It's just incredible. And to build technology around that, knowing what works and where the challenges are and how can we be the solution that these companies need. So it actually, it hurt a lot, but it helped us really, sometimes you just have to go through that adversity again to look into how can you be of instant value and contribute, to where companies were worried. Like, and I'll just say this one thing, which was really important for me to learn. One of my mentors actually had said, I said, why don't we offer this for free, and then until COVID. And my mentor was like, is Zoom for free? I was like, no. He's like, they're making so much money. Why should you always be the one to do things for free? And that really stayed with me. I was like, wow, and that was catalyst where I was like, I'm not going to provide my app for free to anybody, because then who's going to sustain that? There's costs associated. But I thought, okay, how can we make money in a way that provides instant value? So that was really all combined, and now of course, we charge good money for what we do. So it's been good.
That's incredible. I love that. I mean, trial through fire, but it came out all right. And Paulina, I was wondering if you had maybe like a similar experience with, like with the network of women, if there's been an increase in demand for that connection, or have you had a different experience?
Yeah, great question. Since the pandemic began, we have supported over 5,500 now women entrepreneurs through our various programs, which is like, I don't know, like 8 times more than usual. So demand has definitely gone up, but I'm most proud of the team's response to it. Like, we very much at the very beginning went to similar to what Humaira is saying in terms of how do we meet people where they're at right away and be radically valuable. And so we did things that we've never done before, which is immediate education webinars. We made everything free and open doors. We made accessibility our number one objective and value. So we designed everything to be accessible. So that meant that showed up in various ways. It meant we made everything free. It meant we did things like options to download in text and in video. Like, we just went, we're going to meet everyone where they're at, because right now it's really hard times for everyone, and we're going to be of service, and that is our priority. And so we're going to design around that principle while we think, how do we then also build to support people growing and thriving through and afterwards. And I think, getting really into conversation with women entrepreneurs and being right on the ground together made such a difference in us being able to deliver it that way.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Wow. That's incredible. I mean, I figured that there would be a demand for more networks, but to that extent, that's amazing. And then Jessica, you're kind of on the flip side where, you are in person in order to provide your service. So I was curious how that, has affected your business, how you operate as a whole.
Yeah, I am quite different to you, Paulina and Humaira. I go to job sites. I provide a service. Back when the pandemic hit, we definitely saw a lull in our jobs. People were putting projects off. But since then, since about June or July, we've been full ball. We are an essential service, so we have been working throughout this whole pandemic. Obviously, we take precautions, like everybody is wearing masks and PPE right now. We generally wear it in industrial jobs anyway, so now we just wear it everywhere else. A lot of places, it's a little bit better for us, because when we need access to mechanical rooms or rooftops, usually now in the pandemic, someone's already opened it up and we could just go right up to the rooftop without even having a interaction with another person.
Okay.
So it's been great for our business. We were able to do a couple of really large projects, which I think if we were operating in a general way, we wouldn't have had the time to do that, because we're a very small team. So yeah, an essential service, it's great to be working while everyone else is sitting at home. And I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but I'm very active on Instagram. I take you guys wherever I go. And I'm really trying to push that, create awareness for women specifically in the trade and the HVAC trade. But yeah, being in an essential service, it's been really good to be busy during the pandemic. And I'm forever grateful for that, because I'm the kind of person that needs to be busy and working and doing things. And if I sit at home for, say, a long weekend, I want to go crazy. So I'm so thankful that I am out there working throughout this. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Okay, awesome. So, I mean, overall, some very positive stories that started out not so great, which makes it all all better to hear. And then the final official question that we have is beginning with Paulina about why support female entrepreneurs in the first place. I mean, obviously, there's the ethical standpoint, but in your experience, what has continuously motivated you, and why do you continuously do what you do?
Thanks for that question. I don't even know where to begin because there's so many thoughts.
Yeah.
First one, I'll acknowledge that I've been using language of women entrepreneurs instead of female to make it both grammatically more correct and reflective of the definition. And why? Because when women run the world, great things happen. We know that women invest more into their employees, into their communities, into their families. Diverse-led teams produce higher ROI for investment. There's so much data out there and numbers don't really stick. We need to kind of get the sense and the feel for what it is. I think anyone who interacts with a women entrepreneur experiences a different way of being. I think we need to support women so that they can be at tables of leadership and power, so that we can finally move out of cis heteronormative, patriarchal, colonialized culture and into one where we can all thrive as human beings. And I think women will be the ones who will get us there.
Incredible. I literally could not have said it better. That's amazing. Jessica, what about yourself?
For me, I'm in a male-dominated industry, so I think women just bring a different perspective. I think about and I see things differently than my dad and my brother do. When they tackle a problem from a certain way, I'm like, well, what about this? And they're like, oh, I've never thought about that before. When I first started out, I was trying to do the marketing thing, make personas for our target clients, and a lot of them were male. They were middle-aged, kind of big and dirty. Sorry to throw that out there, but honestly, everybody that has a business requires HVAC, right? So I can go into salons and to women-owned businesses, and they can feel comfortable with me. I can answer questions in a way that they can understand. And if you go, so I primarily work in commercial and industrial, but consider going into residential homes.
Yeah.
Say you're a single mom and your furnace breaks down, and then I show up at your door and you just feel a little bit more, comfortable with letting me into your house with your kids and everything. So yeah, I've changed my mind. I think this is a good place for women to be, both from the skilled trade side, but also the customer service side.
Yeah. It's that diversity and ability of women to do so many things at once. I mean, story of history. Anyways,
and if I may continue, I mean, yeah, I'm a very small kind of person, and I struggle with having strength sometimes. But the technology that we have right now, the tools that we have, allow me to overcome those sort of abilities, if you will. So, never been a better time to be a woman in the trade.
Incredible. I love that. And Humaira, yourself?
Yeah, that's actually a really great segue, because I believe, again, I'm really passionate about women and technology in particular. And, again, technology does help women, do their jobs better. And so I think that is the biggest thing that I would say is, like, we belong in places like Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, in places where decisions are made, right? So, and a lot of the companies I still look at, and it's painful to look at sometimes, is that all these, male CEOs, they are a certain way. And I have observed it. I'm not just saying it because it's my one data point, but also just seeing it. firsthand with a lot of male founders that their employees do act a certain way. They are more stressed out. Our team, like it's so amazing. We have opened doors to diversity. Like we have team of like mostly women, but not just that, but women from different parts of the world, like Brazil, India, Pakistan, where I'm from, China. Like it's amazing. So and they feel, supported. And then that hopefully gives further back into the community. And when they have their own companies or in leadership positions, they will hire more people who don't get opportunities. So I really think that being a woman, and my husband actually, I've seen also, he has hired more women since I have begun this work. And he makes sure that diversity is part of conversations. He's in a leadership position, so he has the opportunity to influence, and there's nobody else in leadership on his level as a woman or non-male. And so just even having those conversations, because of the work I do, like it's already starting to show up. I will say this, that there's a huge disconnect in our society even today, and that concerns me. And I would love solutions around that, where, even the dialogue today, my husband walks our kids are used to, not as much now, but around their neighborhood, and he's a super dad. Whereas if I were to do it, that's my job. And even in school, there's pack meetings. There's always like, oh, kindi moms. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to have any friends, because my initial reaction is, what about kindi guys? I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's still that stereotypical thing where my daughters have asked me before, where it's like, Mom, like you didn't come to this thing, and so-and-so's mom was there, and they're always there. And it's like, well, yeah, guess what? Mama's busy. But that's the thing, right? I think there's a huge disconnect in our society, and it starts very young. All the more reasons for me to be passionate about changing, being even a small part of the solution. So yeah, lots of motivation there for me personally, but I hope that others can see that too, and put women and girls is starting from a young age in, positions of decision-making and power.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. And yeah, you made a great point about like that familiar side, especially like, there's always that expectation, whether or not you've subscribed to it, that you have like a whole other career basically. And so like kind of related on family. So like Jessica, you mentioned that, you're in the business with your father and brother. And I was wondering what it was like to, how to balance like working with family while still being, professional and allowing for challenges. And making sure that doesn't, corrode the familial bonds.
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky. I get along really well with my brother. We have a great relationship, and we can separate business and personal stuff as well. I won't say it's always sunshine and rainbows, but we get along really well. I think he really enjoys that he's 5 years younger than me, and he's been qualified for 10 years. So he gets to tell me that I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So I think he really enjoys that part of it. But again, all these different kinds of skills that I bring, they appreciate that I bring those to the business. And I think, it's just really important to keep business and personal stuff separate. We're very lucky that we can do that. I find a lot of our clients enjoy knowing that we're family. We sometimes try to be very professional, and I'll, call my dad, my partner, Neil. But when people find out that we are family, they really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm going to trade school, I'm not really allowed to do service calls and stuff on my own just yet because I'm not qualified. But there are certain things that I can do by myself. I can go and do maintenance services or basic repairs on my own. And I was, a little bit afraid to go into these businesses by myself saying, I am the technician today. I was afraid that they would be like, no, you're not. But I've found a lot of people, they're like, no, good job. Good for you. We trust you. You've gone to school and you've been with your family. And it just feels amazing that I'm there to do a job professionally. And it's great.
Oh, I love that. Okay, that's incredible. I mean, I was quarantined with my brother, and I don't even know how we survived that, let alone work with him. He's 15 years old, so and so and then Paulina, what about your experience, either with like other women and them navigating, family and career, or your own experience?
Yeah, we at my house, we've been living the flipped definition. So my husband has been at home with the kids for almost a year and a half now, a year and a quarter, I guess. And I almost want to go. He's actually just behind me over there. I kind of want to ask him what he's been thinking of it and how it has been for you. How do you feel about being a stay-at-home dad? He goes, I think he's rolling with the punches. I know he misses a bit of community around that. The pandemic certainly hasn't helped with that. All his best intentions of trying to build a little bit more around that were thrown out the window this year. So I certainly feel for that. I think I get a little bit like annoyed still about being asked all the questions that women and mothers in particular do, like, oh, who's going to watch the kids when you do this or that, or let's ask both parents that question.
Yeah.
Also, like, let's not ask it because I trust that you are a professional and you can figure that out. Like, let's let people self-manage themselves. And if you have something that we need to figure out, like with my team too, that's kind of our philosophy and our culture is I will never second guess anything for everyone. And I will trust that if there is a challenge they're facing or we need to have a conversation or realign on something, they will come to me with that. I'm not going to put it on them of not being able to do something or doing something. I just hired an amazing woman who is 3 months pregnant and hired her into a role for a 1-year contract. And someone I was talking to was like, why would you do that? She's about to leave. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's an assumption you made. She actually wants to take us through. And that's her prerogative to do so. She would like to. And I have experienced that because I've taken on 2 really significant roles when I was pregnant. So I took the role at FWE when I was 5 months pregnant, and my previous role of regional director of Western Canada when I was 8 months pregnant. So I am just a really big fan of we don't need to ask these questions, and the individual can self-manage and self-govern and bring forward the solution of how to do it. That's what I go to is this is awesome. Great. How do we make sure we structure this in a way that you feel supported, that we can do the work and meet our goals? Awesome. Let's have that conversation. That's a conversation I'm interested in having, regardless if you're a woman or a man.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, that's an example of like what it's like to, if you have like a like a woman in leadership, they've not only experienced the kind of stereotypes like, oh, you're pregnant. That's like a big, employment no. But it's also, like, I can see like behind your pregnant belly and like, I know your capabilities and your value hasn't diminished. And in fact, like you're doing something incredible. So yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. And yeah, even like with examples of actors and actresses, right, when they're being interviewed, and then the woman's always asked about her family or, how she balances that. And the man is always asked about his accomplishments, even though if he has a family too. So I 100% get that. And then Humaira, you kind of alluded to that too, right? About, the super dad versus you're just, being an adequate mother. So I was wondering how you like address that maybe with your kids or, how you deal with that on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's still a challenge. And again, I do really look at our society, and which is why I always say there's a disconnect in our society. Sure. So yeah, it's challenging, but both my husband and I, like, the past few weeks we've been really busy here at Locelle. So he's been doing the pickup and the drop offs. And sometimes I would go one off, and then there's new families who've joined preschool or and then they are just like, oh, who is this woman? And so and that's fine. That's totally okay. Like, it's actually funny because we balance that really well, or as much as we can, because most days, like, I have a responsibility of running a business. And, as we've grown too, like I've worn so many hats, and my time is really, really valuable. Not that his isn't, but there's more flexibility for him in that way. So he does most of that work, and also takes the kids out for swimming, and whereas I do my work, and that's totally fine. But we made that decision as a family, and he knows who I am. I'm like, go, and this is what Humaira is, and that's what he signed up for. So I think that just having that expectation that this is my wife, this is who she is. She's not going to be stay at home. If I make lunches, that's a privilege, right? So otherwise, you also have to make lunches anyway. So I think we balance each other out in that way, and we're both, high performing, very productive, go people, and we just help each other out in that way. And I think it's been great for the kids because they see that you know, my 6-year-old, she wants to be an astronaut, and we're like, yes. So we constantly focus on that, right? And so, but she sees that it's not that only dad can help me with certain aspects. I was also, by the way, I think this is a math group. I was very good at math too. Hence I went into software engineering. And so so she knows that, you know, both mommy and daddy can do these things. So it's not like, oh, my daddy is the one. I still see photos of my friends with like, oh, Lego Day is dad day. I'm like, why is Lego Day not mommy day? And not, I mean, sure, if you don't like it, that's one thing. But always those developmental things are with the dads. And so we're breaking that stereotype in our homes. And I think, and the girls are, you know, it really reflects. And that makes me so happy. So I think having a good balance and thinking of future work, like it needs to start with us. And also same with our teams. They know, like, if something's not, you know, if they can't show up to work, I actually say, take a day off. If you can do your best work, just don't come in. I'll pay you for this time. Just, you know, and just having that expectation, and because I understand there's days when I just don't want to leave my bed, you know, and that's okay. So yeah. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it's encouraging to see, you know, how much it changed even from like when I was in daycare, and then like moms would come in to cook breakfast and stuff, and like dads would sit on the chairs and be like, well, yep, equal. This seems fair. So yeah, it's great, especially, you know, open communication, both, you know, in the workplace and then like with your partner. It seems paramount from the very beginning. And so I'm so glad. I can't wait to see your daughter in space. And so now that it is, we have about 10 minutes. I kind of have been hogging the panelists with all my questions. So those who are present and viewing, you can either type in the chat one of your questions. I can read it out, and then obviously the panelists will answer. Otherwise, okay, there's already questions. Otherwise, you can also request to share your video and audio, and I will accept you. And then we can add you into our little 4-square pile, and then you can ask the panelists yourself. So just to begin, we already have one from Kiara. Hi, ladies. I love listening to your stories. What are your next steps for your businesses? And I guess we could start with Jessica.
Well, I am really fortunate. My dad started our little family business about 20 years ago, and he just turned 65 years old last month. So the intention is for myself and my brother to take over the business, which I do feel very grateful for. But at the same time, I kind of want to just start something on my own and see what I can do, you know. I am grateful for what my dad has built for us to take on as a legacy, but I kind of also want to pave my own path. So who knows? I still need to get qualified first. I've got a bit of schooling left to finish before I can even consider stuff like that. But the world is ours, and it is what you make it. So I've got high aspirations.
Yeah, I love that. I love that how your learning continuously makes you more compelled to like do even more. Oh, amazing. And then Paulina, what about yourself?
We are in the middle of all our new program launches right now. We have a really big event actually coming up on February 25th. If you all want to come join us, it is free to register this year, which normally it isn't. So it's an amazing year to join. It's the Pitch for the Purse finale, where 3 incredible women entrepreneurs will be on stage sharing their businesses, and then the audience actually votes to pick the winner. So it's actually a very participatory event, and really get to dive in. So we have a next couple of months are really, really big. We're doing a refresh on our brand. So I'm so excited for those things to be going out into the world. And then as we do kind of through our cycles of the year, we go back into listening and consideration and strategy mode to see what else we want to bring to the world.
Gosh, that's so exciting. And I think Jessica, like, she also recognized the name. Yeah, I'm like 100% up to date, really ready to go. I wasn't going to say anything unless you said something, though. Okay, and then, Humaira, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I always say this, next year is going to be so big for us. Like, it's going to be crucial here. It's like every week is crucial. So we're actually building out our technology with what we have learned and how we can be that service that, you know, companies, organizations can utilize when it comes to mentorship. So we're really building this robust, scalable technology right now. So I think that is going to consume a lot of my time over the next 6 months. And once that's there, then we're just going to go crazy, all in.
I love that. Oh, it's so exciting. And yeah, it's quite awe-inspiring considering the current state of the world. So looking ahead is always really fun. And okay, next question by Jenna. Hey, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? And we can begin with Paulina.
What would it be?
Yeah, no
what
pressure.
Would it be? I think what would have really served me and what I was really seeking out is stories of women who have chosen their own paths or chosen or created paths for themselves that really aligned with their values and could tune into the inner confidence around that and knowing that the path that they pursued or created would be one that they would be so deeply happy with. Like on a home front, work front, kind of those pieces that sticking to your values is what will really drive you feeling successful, not from the external definition of success, but rather that internal feeling of feeling really aligned and really plugged into yourself and rooted.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at least for high school, they definitely don't teach you like fulfillment as one of the factors of success. So absolutely, I totally agree. And then Humaira, what about yourself?
Yeah, I would say please your heart and not please others. I mean, it's one thing to care for others, be kind, but I think as women, as girls, and I see this even in our family, and I correct myself a lot, like, oh, be kind to others. Now it's changed to be kind to yourself and others. So I think that a lot of times, and expectations are people, it's about expectations, managing those. So I think filling your own bucket before you fill others is key. And I've learned it every single time. It's like when I am happy, when I am feeling fulfilled, when I have my mission aligned with myself, I'm a much better parent, mother, leader, friend, and whatever you want to call me at that time. But it's just, yeah. And also when it comes to, people have expectations. So now it's not, oh, I want to prove you wrong because you didn't give me funding. It's more like, I'm going to prove the people who believed in me right. So it's just perspective and changing the mindset. So if somebody doesn't like me, see you later or never, right? So, but I need to like myself and I need to live with myself. And it's the advice that you give to your friends, right? So give it to yourself, like really do it. And what's her name? Eleanor Roosevelt, her quote about, do one thing that scares you every day, like literally. And that's the scariest thing, to please yourself first and then others. Is hard to do as women, but that's the one thing that I'm doing this year, practicing it, helping my family, prioritizing myself, and then others. Because I, even on the team front, I would give my all to my team, even if that meant that I would jeopardize my family time.
Absolutely.
I am changing that. It's like, nope, I need to, as a leader, I need to be there and bring my A game for you to all do your jobs well. So yeah, I mean, it's just really changes for me. And I would say it's the pandemic, a lot of the reflections, but please yourself, prove the ones that you have backed to you and believed in you right, as opposed to the other way around.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think I remember reading about how this insight you mentioned about what these are the kind of things you normally tell your friends, but you don't actually execute onto yourself. But yeah, they were saying like, if you heard like what you tell your inner voice, if that was a real person and they were saying those same things to your friends, you would stop it. But it being your inner voice, normally you accept it. So yeah, that's definitely something you actively have to unlearn. And so it's a journey for sure. But I love that piece of advice, especially for young women when they're not often told that they can be put first without being considered like selfish or cold. Or there's some other names that I can't say right now. So absolutely, I totally agree. And then Jessica, piece of advice for younger self.
I would say, yeah, Humaira really touched on it, is the expectations. Don't follow other expectations of yourself. Even if you do, eventually it'll catch up with you, and then you will have missed out on that little bit of time. The second piece of advice would be put yourself out there and be yourself. Don't be what other people think that you are. And what I mean by that is I put myself out there a lot on Instagram, on social media. And when I first started, I wanted to be perfect and polished and And now that I've kind of let that go and I'm more of myself, my quirkiness comes out, people love it. They can relate to it, right? You're just another person, you do silly things, you make funny faces and all that stuff. The third piece I would say is always ask questions. Don't feel like you're asking stupid questions. Ask until you understand, because you will get it eventually, but don't rely on others to know what you know, to know the knowledge that you have. If you don't understand something, ask the questions, get it right in your head, and you will succeed.
Oh, I
Can I say I love that one, and I wish I had asked more questions when I was younger, when it's more appreciated and there. And if I can say one thing, I found it really hard to say, like, I don't understand, because I thought it would mean that people would think that I'm just not smart and wouldn't be invited into the room. But I've since learned that a question, even if I just shifted it to instead ask, can you clarify that for me? Or can you expand on that for me? It is asking the same thing, and people will just say the same thing in a different way. Yes. And that might just help you get it. And that helped me in finding a language that I felt really comfortable asking around, that still got the point across, but just different words made me feel better about it.
Yes,
absolutely. And I think, if I may, the other side appreciates that too, right? If you're there and you're just nodding your head and you're like, okay, and then you go off and do the thing in the world and you're not doing it, I think that the questions are really appreciated.
Totally.
Yeah, and just quickly, I always say this, can you tell me more? And yeah, people will tell you more. And so yeah, it can be hard to say, I don't understand, when you don't know what other people understand. So yeah, it's tricky, but definitely ask questions.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have like one more minute, and I'm going to mush the last three questions from Liala, Kiara, and Karina. So all of them are surrounding either tackling misogyny in the workplace, or advice or skills to develop to gain a presence in a male-dominated area. And I guess we could begin with Humaira.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so
I want all day.
You know.
But I would say the one thing that just looking back now, you know, I'm going to let go of the should have, could have, would have. I'm going to start now because it's still pretty much similar, unfortunately. So I don't go to places that, you know, are not embracing of who I am, like whether as a woman, you know, as a leader in tech. If it doesn't serve my purpose. Like if I have to go to a place where I need to move the business forward, I will go and just be myself, leave at 10 p.m. and that's it. But if I don't need to be there, I'm not going to go there just to be there. Right. So I spend my time wisely. And in terms of having amazing other women, I mean, that's what I do for a living, you know, connecting women with women leaders for the guidance that they need. So, and the reason for that is that, you know, sometimes you do need that perspective from another woman leader. I have so many incredible mentors and sponsors, women, who can share, okay, if something happens, I can go to and say, look, this is what happened. How do you think I can navigate? And one advice I also got was, you know, if you have to, and this is too out there, so my apologies, but, you know, if you have to differentiate or be either the bitch or the slut, this is not a good analogy, by the way, but anyway, be the bitch, you know, tell people off, you know, if they're not being nice, if they are, you know, not, I don't know, just if they're not saying the things that they should say, call them out or tell someone, but do not let it go just because that's the status quo. Like challenge that as opposed to just give into that. Oh, that's how it's done. So I do not settle for that anymore. I call people out, even if I have to do it on a public platform, if they have said those things on a public platform. So, but again, I think it takes a lot of time. You have to live through a lot of experiences, but surrounding yourself with people who really, you know, support you and are on the same mission as challenging status quo and changing the workplaces. We need to take action. It doesn't have to be shouting and yelling, but you know, just own who you are. If somebody says something that's inappropriate, call them out. And that's what I do. And I have a bit of a brand now. Like, yes, you know, I can be lively, I can be cheerful, but you cannot, I'm not going to stand for what's wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Been there, when there's something that doesn't feel right and you're the only one who like calls it out, and then you're called some other things. But that also could be an indication that you're going in a way that people don't typically, and you're paving your own path. And the people who come behind you, they'll appreciate it. And the people who stand beside you, at least you can weed out the ones who are truly valuable. So yes, absolutely. And then Jessica, any advice?
I would say just be yourself and have confidence in yourself. And if you're in a place, you're there for a reason. I would also agree with Humaira, like if people are saying things that they shouldn't be saying, call them out on it. A lot of people, they'll just like, oh, it is how it is. And they'll leave it or they'll laugh it off. But it's really important these days to stand up and say, hey, that's not cool. You can't say that to me. I've also joined, or we're starting up a support group for women in HVAC. So find support groups out there. There are other ladies that are going through exactly what you're going through. You're not alone out there in the world. Find them and support each other. I'm so lucky. I feel like I'm really lucky that I haven't met with too much adversity with being a woman in this trade. But I really think that it's important to stand up when you hear and you see things happening. Say your piece and stand up, say, hey, that's not cool. Because times are changing.
Absolutely. And the only way they change is if, like you said, people actually actively change it.
100%.
Yeah. So Paulina, absolutely not last, but definitely not least, any parting thoughts on this topic?
I was thinking back to myself when I was like 17, 18, 19, and speaking out at that point would have terrified me for a number of reasons, not the least of which being like I needed a job and needed to make a paycheck, and I would have really feared the repercussions of that. And I don't think our culture had caught up yet with that spirit. I do think that has shifted a lot over the years. And I think if I was in that place again where, that very real place of concern over my job and not being in a place where that I could take that risk, or that I felt that I could take that risk, I think strength in numbers is what I always come back to. And so if I am in a culture that perhaps you can usually find someone that either is in similar experience, in a position of authority, that can use their voice on your behalf. So I try to think beyond myself then, and either coming together or finding someone who can advocate on my behalf.
Incredible. Awesome. Okay. So that concludes our panel. I'm sorry we went a little over, but we were in such a roller coaster. I couldn't stop. So thank you, speakers, and thank you, Yale students, for joining this session. And now I invite you to check out the other sessions and connect with the speakers via LinkedIn, for example. You can just search up their names. Very popular, very incredible. I've done it myself. And yeah, they also posted it on the chat. You can also go to session and then people. And then you can also maybe private message them and say what you found valuable, maybe ask for a coffee chat if they're open to it. And so once you finish with that, please use the time to check out networking, the expo, and obviously get some lunch. We'll see everyone back at 1 p.m. on the main stage. Thank you again, and we hope you've been really enjoying the Yale Community Day.